Cimoooooooo!
Welcome to Tech Tuesday, a weekly series where we discuss some awesome tech cards as well as help make you a better player. This week's card is Debunk, an extremely powerful trap card. And when your opponent's got you in a funk, it's time to debunk. Debunk is a counter trap card that has a fairly straightforward effect. When a monster effect is activated in either the hand or the graveyard, you negate the activation and then you banish that card. Now the only stipulation here is that if the card in question actually leaves the zone it originally activated in when Debunk is resolving, the card actually doesn't get banished. And so this mainly applies to hand traps, but it's just something to mention. Now, I was actually kind of surprised and had to look back in my videos because I swore I would have already done a video on Debunk by now. I mean, look at hat format. Debunk was reaching around $30 a copy before it got its reprint, and I mean, the card was just that powerful. And I'm just so shocked that I've never done a video on it until now. But I'm glad that I'm doing it now because Debunk has so much utility against so many decks right now that it's just the perfect time. So let's start with Necros. Now you can use Debunk on Necros of Brio or a Klaus. You can use it on those, sure. But the big thing you're going to want to use it on is Valk, because there aren't exactly a lot of really simple answers to Valk. I mean, Shadalls have El Shadal Fusion. You know, KOZMOs now have basically a built-in out to Valk. But Debunk is just a solid counter to Valk. If your opponent's going to Valk to block and end the battle phase, chain Debunk, they most likely aren't going to have any way to stop that Debunk, and then your attacks can go through, and you're more than likely going to win. And since I already mentioned Shadalls, Debunk is extremely good against Shadalls, because it basically hits any single Shadal monster when it hits the graveyard, but most importantly, you're going to be able to hit the fusion monsters. And the reason that's key is because if the fusion monsters hit the grave, not only are you going to stop your opponent from adding the fusion spell back to their hand, but you're going to banish that fusion monster, meaning that they're not going to be able to recur it with something like Falco later on. And since I mentioned KOZMO as well, Debunk is actually very interesting against KOZMO because when the opponent activates cards like Forerunner or Slip Rider from the graveyard upon their destruction, you can chain Debunk, and even though the card will get banished, which is unfortunate because they can just recur it with KOZMO Town, you're going to be able to negate the effect for them to special summon another monster from the deck. So that could potentially stop the cycle of just the looping of monsters, and that could be pretty pivotal. Just like Shadalls, Debunk is amazing against Burning Abyss because all their effects basically activate in the hand when they're going to be special summoned, or in the graveyard when they hit the graveyard. So you can basically hit any Burning Abyss monster at any point when it goes. And if you hit something like a Seer, or a Dante, or a Skarm, or a Graph, I mean, you're going to be in really good shape. And now that Clown Blade is a thing in the meta as well, Debunk is a really solid answer for that because you can stop the Trick Clown, you can stop the Thousand Blades, and probably more importantly, you can stop the Damage Juggler, which is something that a lot of people overlook, but banishing that Damage Juggler so they don't get a search is actually really good. Now, I already alluded to this earlier, but another reason why Debunk is a really good card is the hands. Now, the hands can sometimes be really tricky to work around, so having that one card out can sometimes just be the perfect answer you need to stop that endless flow of hands. And finally, one last reason why Debunk is such an incredible card is because it stops hand traps. Effect Veiler, Max C, Jurigato, Ghost Ogre, Honest, whatever hand trap you want, you can stop it. And sometimes hand traps are some of the hardest cards to dodge in the game, but with Debunk, you have one card, and that's all you need. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Debunk. I mean, this is one of my favorite counter traps of all time. Like I said earlier, this card in hat format was just crazy, and I've loved it ever since. It might seem like it has such a niche effect, but it's so surprising to see how much application this card really has, and I think it has a lot of potential in this format. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. We'll see you next week.
Cimoooooooo!